Welcome back, everybody. Alan Warren here on this last show before Christmas. During the break, we were successful in getting our next guest on the line, and he is one of the kindest, wisest men that I know. Personally, now, I have not spoken with him in more than 50 years, but that is all about to change. I want to welcome Santa Claus to the show this morning. How's Santa doing?
Ho, ho, ho. Mighty fine, Alan Warren. My gosh, great day in the morning.
Last time I sat on your lap, I was a little bitty kid. I'm afraid I'm rivaling you with my girth.
I imagine, yeah, I had to let that old suit out another 2 inches this year. And I tell you, it's I'm not eating all the stuff the kids leave for me anymore.
Well, you better come and eat some of the Warren House. We've doubled up on the chocolate chip cookies.
Boy.
Yeah, we got a bunch of them. Hey, listen, the reason I had you on, Santa, first off, I appreciate you for taking the call. It's really twofold. You know, it's been 50 years since we have visited, literally, and I want to thank you for so many of the wonderful things you brought me as a kid, my pocket knives and flashlights and a BB gun and all that stuff. But you made me one happy little boy, and you brought magic and imagination and so much to me, and for that I am most grateful.
Well, but I remember that note that I got from you, and I switched something that your brother wanted and what you wanted, and I got that note from you, and but ever since then, I kind of got things straightened out. You know, you guys, it was easy to get confused. Twin boys.
With an identical twin brother, you know, they called us Double Trouble, and I remember that he would get some of the Christmas presents that I thought would certainly be mine, so I'm glad we finally got that whole thing straightened out. But the second reason, Santa, I wanted to have you on is to kind of get your perspective on things with boys and girls today and their parents and grandparents and all that kind of stuff. But let's just talk a little bit about Santa Claus. First off, how are things going up at the North Pole right now? Crazy as always?
Well, it sure is. We had about 1.5 feet of snow last night, and it's cold and getting colder. And even, you know, I was out this morning feeding some reindeer, and a couple of them were shivering. So, you know, it's cold when your reindeer are shivering.
Is everybody healthy and they're ready to make the trek south?
Well, we had a dancer had a little hoof problem, and I had to normally I use a vet out of Fairbanks, get him to come up here, but he was too busy, and I had to use an old boy from over there at the Kamchatka Peninsula, and you know those Russians all talk like they got a mouthful of rocks, and so. But anyway, he fixed that old dancer up, and they're ready to go.
Y'all are ready. Santa, what is your favorite part of Christmas and why?
Well, you know, Alan, it may surprise you, but it's the music, the Christmas music, not holiday music. It's Christmas music. We got an XM radio out there in the barn and at the corral, and, you know, it just has a soothing effect on the reindeer and, you know, and even the elves inside his shop here, they're a whole lot more productive. You know how it is down there in Texas. You got farm animals. You got a radio out there in the barn, and you better, because you walk in unannounced, and some animal's liable to give you a good lick, and you'll wake up sometime next week.
I love how you said Christmas music and not holiday music.
Amen, brother.
Well, hey, what are some things that people don't know about Santa?
Well, there's some things I don't want you to know.
Well, we won't go there, Santa. But
we won't go there, yes. Well, it's one thing is that, you know, Mrs. Claus doesn't get as much credit as she should, because she certainly helps around here and keeps those elves in line. So I'd say that that primarily is what they don't realize, and that's how much she does.
Well, what is it that you have to do to get these elves motivated? Because it seems like to me you always hear stories about what's going on at the North Pole right before Christmas. Do they procrastinate all year? I mean, are they busy all year? Is it hard to find help? Tell me about these elves.
Well, it is. It is kind of hard to find help, but, you know, this time of year, it's not so much procrastination. It's they put in a lot of overtime. You know, everybody's busy, and you know, we've had to over the years, things have changed so much. For instance, back, 50, 60, 70 years ago, we had the best leather shop, we had the best woodworking shop, and then long about the 60s, we had to throw out most of that and bring in injection molders, and everything was plastic. And now, we're getting into all of this new technology, and so half of the elves are being retrained all the time for the new things that are coming along, what kids want.
To me, that's kind of sad. I mean, I think back to some of the things that I had when I was a kid, and you brought me a sheath knife with, a leather sheath, and I know that it was made by the elves, and those things they're relics now, I guess, and all these kids nowadays want iPhones and tablets and electronic gadgets.
Exactly, and even trail cameras. Can you imagine? But this is great. This is the times we're in, and whatever they want, that's what we're going to try to get them.
Santa, what do you do that keeps you so happy and optimistic and have such faith? Because you're just a man who is always smiling. You've got such wisdom you've had through the years, and I guess I want to know your secret.
Secret, you say? Well, it just putting a smile on a kid's face. Does it get any better than that? I think not.
Yeah, I just love it. It's when I go fishing and hunting, and I take someone in particular fishing and hunting, it gives me such joy that I want to do it more and more. What do you think about kids nowadays that do fish and hunt? Is that a pretty cool thing anymore, or is that kind of, gone?
No, you talk about, I don't think there's anything any better. If kids that have the opportunity to grow up appreciating the lifetime recreational activities of hunting and fishing, it stays with them for life. It's a lifetime thing. And so, some of the things I'm dropping off under trees and, they're going to wear out. But you take a kid hunting and fishing and you spend time with them outdoors, that's going to be with them, and long after you're gone, they're still talking about you and how, you went through it with your dad.
Yeah. And those are the things that we cherish, we hold on to our entire lives. I mean, I remember the trinkets and the stocking stuffers and the hand warmers and all the things that I got from you over the years, but the real meaningful things is you gave me hope and imagination, but my parents gave me that time, and that was so critically important.
Absolutely. And, I'm looking through some of the records right now, and I can't remember, maybe a time or two, but I don't think I've ever seen a kid get into trouble that had a hunting and fishing license in his pocket. Once they learned those activities and enjoy them, on come Friday night when some of their friends want to go out and do something or get into mischief, these guys know that Saturday morning they're going to be getting up about 5 o'clock and heading out with their dad to the deer lease or the ranch, and no, they don't want to be messing around on Friday night and getting in trouble. They want to be out there at the ranch.
Santa Claus, listen, we got to take a quick break. Please hold on. Folks, when we come back, I'm going to get a little bit of advice for us parents and grandparents about taking our kids hunting and introducing them to the outdoors from the one and only Santa Claus. I've not visited with him in 50 years, but we are so lucky to have him on the air right now. So, Santa, stick around, would you please?
Will do.
All right, thank you. Folks, y'all stick around, too. We'll be right back. And welcome back, everybody. Alan Warren here behind the microphone visiting with an old friend, a man I haven't spoken with in a half a century. All the way from the North Pole, we have Santa Claus himself on the phone, but only for a few more minutes. Santa, I want you to give us a little bit of advice and perspective, not for the kids, but for the parents and grandparents that are listening. We have a lot of people right now that are listening to this show. They're on the way to the hunting stand. They're maybe having coffee, in the cabin. They're going to work. But we want to connect with our kids. What kinds of advice can you give us?
Well, once again, in the time spent with kids outdoors, uh, you just can't. You can't. The returns are so great, and fortunately, it's something that develops within them, and long after you're gone, and they're passing it on to the next generation. So it's something, it's clean, it's wholesome activity. You know, you're out there hunting, and you say, well, there's animals, and you don't want to do anything that, but hey, they're renewable natural resources, and you're doing the herd a favor by thinning them out. So when it comes to hunting and fishing, no, we're not hurting the resource. We're actually helping it. And, you know, every state has game and fish agencies that determine when the seasons will be and what the limits will be. And so there's never, you know, a problem with that natural resource, you know, dwindling.
Santa, what do you think about kids feeling the need to shoot a big buck or catch a big fish, or parents feeling the need to hurry up, we got to get this great big buck on the ground, you know, before you're 6 years old? Or what about this pressure? Do you see a lot of people applying pressure, and is that a good thing, a bad thing? Do you have some comments and advice about that?
Well, I do. And, you know, I think it's a good idea to start off with a doe. You know, a lot of kids today, they end up, well, if we're getting another phone call, it must be someone else trying to get to the North Pole. But a lot of kids today, they get, you know, their parents get them into this B and C mental attitude. Well, if that's Boone and Crockett, there's no place for that. I'm into B and C, but it's boom and cook it. And doe is a good place to start. Besides, antlers are hard to eat. And kids, you know, and the other thing, you know, you get out there with them, and kids have a certain attention span, and that's about it. And you got to, a parent has to realize that there's just a certain amount of time developed to that, or that you have to put into that actual hunt. And then, you know, to a kid, skipping rocks over there at the tank is just as important as sitting in that blind.
So we can, essentially, we can try to push our kids too much, and they don't benefit from that. They actually kind of resist our pushing to get them to shoot that big buck or sit in the deer blind longer when it's cold outside.
Absolutely. And believe it or not, you know, when kids start out with that giant buck, what do they got to look for?
Well, you got that right. I remember my first deer, you know, it was a little hill country 8-pointer, and it's my most cherished buck to this day. I'll never forget it, never forget my dad being with me and how it happened and took place. And
well, I remember it too, and I remember you got buck fever so bad, that old blind was shaking, your gun was banging, you looked like one of the reindeer out here trying to pass a peach seed.
You were there, Santa. You were absolutely there.
I was there. I've seen it.
You know, the funny thing to explain about connecting with nature, at least to me, in the natural, it's hard to explain the words that the feelings that come with this connection with others when you're in nature. It's sort of like you, Santa. You know, if you look at Santa in the natural, you're a jolly guy in a red suit with a white beard, and all that may be true, but you are so much more than that. You represent so much more, and that's what the outdoors is to so many of us, that people that don't go in the outdoors try to understand, why do we do it? It's because of this supernatural thing that draws us there. It's sort of, you've got supernatural powers, and so does nature, I think.
Well, nature, if you spend enough time in a blind just observing what's going on around you, and if you have a dad in there spending some time with you saying, you see that buck over there, now when his tail raises, you teach him how to read the body language of deer. You teach them about ducks. You teach them about turkeys. I guess the first time you ever had a turkey come in on you. It's just great. But for most of us, and certainly for me, hunting and nature, fishing, it's where I go to get all the knots out of my rope.
Do you actually fish and hunt still? When do you find the time, and where do you go?
Well, the fishing, you know, the ice is only off the water up here about maybe 6 weeks out of the year. I usually drop down to maybe Great Bear Lake over there, and none of it used to be. They call it Northwest Territories, but we fish there. Mama Claus, she loves those lake trout and lake perch and some of those char, but yeah, that's where I get in a little fishing. Then, of course, we do a little ice fishing up here this time of year. But hunting, I'll tell you, you can't beat Texas. You can't beat Alaska. I love Africa.
So you've been everywhere, I know.
I've been everywhere with the electric chair, seen everything but the wind.
I just love you, Santa Claus. You are so awesome. What kinds of emails? And let me ask you this. Are you getting more emails now than the old-fashioned letters to Santa? And which do you prefer?
The old-fashioned letters. Because they weren't, when kids, it allowed kids to write, anymore. None of them can write. It's all about email. But that's it. That's the modern technique, how we communicate. And, you go with the flow. You
just have to deal with technology, but you still take the old-fashioned letters. I remember writing letters to you and drawing pictures of, deer and fish and my family being outdoors, and you can't do that with a computer. Absolutely not. No, it loses the feeling, the touch, and computers are they're wonderful, and yet I just like the old letters. Yeah. Santa, in the event people are looking for that last-minute gift that maybe Santa Claus can't bring, what kind of gift would you encourage parents and grandparents to think about giving to their children? Alan, I don't think there's anything more precious to give to a kid than your time. And spending time with kids, teaching them about the outdoors, that's the thing that they'll remember. That's their opportunity to learn, and in so doing, doing it the right way, the ethic, having that outdoor ethic, that they'll learn the right way to do things. You see it happen sometimes. People take a few shortcuts, and that's just not the thing you want to teach your kids. You want to teach them to play by the rules. And it'll be great for them, and it'll be great for them throughout their lives. Santa, I'm getting the signal from the producer I've got to let you get. I want to thank you for everything that you do for me, for my life still and my family, and for everybody else. We appreciate it. Be safe this Christmas, and eat some extra cookies when you're at the Warren house, okay? Well, I'll do that, and just remember, practice, safety out there in the field. They count us as we go out. Let's make sure we all return. Awesome. Thank you, Santa Claus. I love you, and we'll talk again someday. It won't be 50 years next time. Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.